Welcome to Perspectives in Mobile, the news podcast from the Mobile Ecosystem Forum. Join us discussing the world of telecommunications, technology, and mobile innovations. From Florence, Riccardo Amati.
Welcome to a new episode of my podcast series Perspective. I am Riccardo Amati, and today we are joined by Josh Linkner, entrepreneur, best-selling author, venture capitalist, and jazz artist. Josh, thank you for joining.
Truly a pleasure to be with you today, Riccardo. Thank you.
With a career of 30 years, am I correct?
It is.
Josh has led, grown, and exited 5 tech companies and invested in over 100 startups. In this episode, we'll explore leadership in the digital revolution and in the mobile ecosystem. Josh will tell us about the interplay between artificial intelligence and human creativity and how principles like listening to the team you're working with, interplay, collaboration, and improvisation can inform business innovation, which is kind of saying that jazz artists can teach something to managers and entrepreneurs, isn't it, Josh?
That's exactly right. There's a lot we can learn from jazz.
All right. So it's a unique blend of creativity and business acumen. So let's dive in. And what changes are necessary for leaders to stay relevant in the digital revolution?
I think it's, the cycles are changing so quickly. And in the past, we would find a point of success and cling on to it for as long as we could. But those cycles are changing so rapidly. I think one of the key challenges for leaders today is to be agile, to remain very fluid and willing to very quickly let go of what was in favor of what can be. And of course, this is something that we do in jazz. We're constantly, listening, learning from what our surroundings are telling us, adapting to changing conditions, and remaining fluid and agile, willing to let go of the past in order to seize the future.
In the mobile ecosystem, for example, how to balance the need for innovation with the operational challenge in any way of scaling a business that you have. So what management strategies would you suggest?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the mobile ecosystem is expanding and advancing so quickly. I think the best recommendation I have is one of experimentation. Many people think that they should launch something with perfection. And because things are again changing so quickly, I think it's more about coming up with ideas. Don't overanalyze them and see if we can test them cheap and fast. Especially in mobile, you can test something, get feedback from a customer, and tweak and adapt and refine it. So in the old world of software and technology, you'd launch something with permanence, and it had to be perfect. Now in the mobile ecosystem, I think it's launching lots of little things into very small cohorts and customer groups, testing them, discarding the ones that don't work, doubling down on the ones that do. So I think there's a real notion of impermanence, but that actually is very freeing for us as business leaders and artists because we get to test a lot of things all the time.
Yeah, and about artificial intelligence, how do you see the role of human judgment and creativity in this interplay between the human beings and this thing, which is not human, but that can think?
I've been asked a lot about, because I study human creativity. I've been doing this for 20 years. People ask me often, does this mean that AI is going to take over human creativity? And the answer is no, not at all. I think AI and human creativity can live in harmony together. Because AI is very good at pattern recognition. It can assemble ideas only based on historical ones. So if you said write a sonnet, it would, learn from other sonnets and write a sonnet, but it's actually not creating something that's net new. Where, in other words, a human being was the one that came up with what is a sonnet in the first place. And so I think that what AI will do is it'll be a wonderful research tool for us as we explore creative ideas. It can give us perspective on the past very quickly. It can help give us beginnings of new ideas, perhaps, and spur the mind. But I think that we shouldn't look to AI as a replacement, but rather more of a co-pilot. And truly, the only thing that resonates with other human beings is creativity generated by other human beings. And again, AI can be a useful tool. It can be helpful in research and assembly of ideas, but those net new ideas I still think come from people. And in fact, as a leader, especially in the mobile ecosystem, many of the things that humans have done for years will be automated by technology. The technology can do it cheaper, faster, more accurately. And on the one hand, you're like, oh man, that's pretty bad. But actually, it's really good, because what it means is that let AI do that stuff, the boring, mundane, basic stuff that we don't like about our jobs, so that it will free us up to spend all of our professional lives being what we're meant to be, which is creators. Again, human beings are built to be creative. That's our natural state. We're hardwired to be creative. And if a machine could do something else, let the machine do that to free up our time so we can really be the ones that are driving ideas forward.
You know, one thing that I can tell you as a journalist, for example, let's say I need to do a bulletin, like 10 minutes of news. As we do in TV or radio, you just take things from the news wires, and you have some news judgment probably. So you're an editor, let's say, and you have 4 people, and probably in 1 hour you can build a bulletin. Right now, an editor can do it by himself, because you just tell ChatGPT to rephrase, and you put together 3-4 different wires, and it does it in a second. And of course, you need to intervene. You need to edit, because most of the time it's wrong. But still, you had to edit after your colleagues had finished writing the stories. So, but the problem is, people of my age learned in newsrooms, starting with those things. And now this is not going to happen. I see it as a problem of, you can't really learn how to do some kind of profession, probably.
Oh, the cycles of learning are going to increase. We're going to have to let go of previous ways of doing work to discover new ones, no question about it. And it's really forcing most of us to rethink our approach. We have to rethink, what does our job mean? What is our role as a leader? What is our role as a contributor? I get back to AI, though. You're talking about with editing. Think about if you're building a house. AI could maybe build the frame. They could dig the basement, they could put the walls up. But it's up to the humans to finish the house, which is to do those little touches, to make sure that the final carpentry is just perfect, the carving on the staircase. And so if it can do the basics for us more quickly, it frees us up as leaders to do that final phase. So again, AI might be a good beginning, but the human beings are the ones that finish it. And again, let's say you had an hour to write an article. Instead of you spending 90% of that finding facts and putting those together, and only 10% of your time making it beautiful, making it artistic, now AI can do the beginning part of it, and you can spend the whole hour making it artistic. So I think in that case, you end up with a better product, not built by AI, assisted by AI.
Right. Yeah. You can start being creative from the beginning. That's probably the main, hopefully, the main interesting thing about the AI. Let's get back to jazz. So improvisation, collaboration, listening. We were talking about that. How can they be applied to managing this relationship between human creativity and very quick digitalization that we are seeing?
I think it gets back to what we consider the core skills of leaders. The core skills of leaders in the past, they talked about hard skills and soft skills, and the creative front was more the soft optional skills. Today, that's reversed. Today, the most important skills are the creative ones, because the machines can do the previous hard skills. And I liken it to the shift from being a classical conductor to a jazz musician. 20 years ago, the role of a leader was that of a classical conductor. Get everybody to play the notes exactly as written, just like Mozart intended. And the role was around precision and accuracy and alignment, not a lot of net new creation. Today, however, the world is so fluid, so volatile, so uncertain. We have to perform at our best, but all the notes aren't in front of us anymore. There's no such thing as a checklist to success. And so we have to perform like jazz musicians do with a mere suggestion in front of us, a direction, and we have to make it up as we go. We have to play jazz. And that involves, again, situational awareness, active listening, responding quickly to moving and changing conditions, co-creating and listening with other collaborators, and also recovering from setbacks. In jazz, we make mistakes all the time, and it's not about wallowing in self-pity and being embarrassed of the mistake. It's about learning quickly and recovering quickly. And so if you think about the mindset of a leader, again, in the past, many of us were trained. To your point earlier, we were brought up in a world that was different than how we're being called to lead today. The world we were trained in and got us to this point in time was that of a classical conductor. But the world we're about to enter, the way we're being called to lead now, is absolutely that of a jazz musician. Fast adaptations, fluid listening, improvising our way to success.
But you need to keep the groove. That's the even if you make mistakes in playing music. So what's the secret there? I mean, you need to be really into it. That's the. Is that a question of concentration? Is that a question of just let your feelings go? How do you see it?
Well, you said it very well just now. You have to you have to keep the groove even if you make mistakes. And that's exactly what we have to do in business. Exactly what we have to do in business. And to me, it's funny, I've played over 1,000 concerts around the world. I'm playing next week in Brussels, this coming week in Brussels. And, people ask me all the time, you're playing very fast music. It's complicated. It requires a lot of dexterity and training. You're playing with musicians that you've never met. There's been no rehearsals. How do you know you're going to get it right? And I always laugh and say, I know I'm not going to get it right. I never have, never will. I've always made mistakes. And so my confidence as a musician doesn't come from thinking I'm going to be perfect. My confidence as a musician, it comes from knowing how to recover from a setback. And I think that's exactly what we need to do in business. It's a willingness to let our creative abilities run free a little bit, recognizing full well that we will make some mistakes, but then figure out how to recover quickly. And so confidence, that's how we start to build confidence. The other thing, if you think about the dynamics, the cultural dynamics of a jazz group versus a symphony. If you play a wrong note in a symphony, the conductor stops everything and goes over and hits you on the head with his baton. In jazz, if you play a bad note, a real clunker, you play it twice more and call it art. Everybody's happy with it. So I would suggest that jazz musicians aren't necessarily more creative than a classical musician. In fact, all human beings are creative, period. But the cultural dynamics of a jazz combo supports responsible risk-taking and supports people when they make mistakes as opposed to criticizing and berating them the way a classical setting would be. And so again, back to leadership. What can we do as leaders? What can we do in the mobile ecosystem? It's play some jazz. It's the willingness to support each other both when we shine and when we stumble.
Yeah, we probably know where to go in the sense you need to know the notes of the chords. You need to know where to go when you do a mistake. So you need anyway training, and it's not just improvising without any idea of what you're doing. So how important still is, let's say, preparation, application, and accuracy as well. Because you're talking about making mistakes, but accuracy is still important. So, I mean, what's the interplay between accuracy and making mistakes?
Yeah, that's a very good question. First of all, you mentioned the word, mastery, and one can really not be an effective creator in any context, in journalism, in music, in art, in business, without having the basics and the fundamentals. In other words, if I'm trying to play a jazz concert and I don't know how to play a G7th chord, and I fumble around and my entire mind capacity is figuring out where to put my fingers, I can't freely flow and create new things. So there is an element of mastery that is required before sort of entering the arena in any context. But I think what you're talking about, accuracy and making mistakes, it's better to separate in two distinct phases. So if you are writing and you're so worried about a spelling mistake and you're so worried where does the comma go and how many word count is this going to be and what will my final publisher think about it, your creativity will crumble. Now, at the same time, you don't want to turn in sloppy work. I think what you do is we tend to smush the design phase and the editing phase together, and they really should be separate. In other words, I would prefer, and I've written 4 books, so when I write, first I write and it's sloppy and it's messy and it's terrible and it's bad wording choices and it's a mess. It's just like spewing. Like if someone read it, they'd be embarrassed for me. But that's where I'm getting my creativity out. It's okay to make mistakes at that point. Now, after that's on the page, then I'll take another pass and say, okay, let's make sure there's no spelling errors. Then I might take another pass. Oh, let's add some humor to it. I might take another pass. Let's add more colorful word choices. And so what I found is that the first elements of a work is more raw and creative and very, very messy, lots of mistakes. And then it's a series of revisions and refinements that add the accuracy after the creative act has largely been already deployed. And so when you think about it in stages, it's very liberating because you're not restricted like, oh, I hope I don't make a spelling mistake. Because if you're in that mindset, there's no way you're going to be focused on truly flowing as an artist or as a creator. Separate the process of design and creativity versus the linear process of sort of editing and refinement.
That's a very clear example. Would you name a jazz artist that more than others could inspire business managers in this revolutionary phase?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there are many probably, but one.
I'm going to go with John Coltrane. John Coltrane, for those that don't know, was a saxophone player, one of my all-time heroes. I believe in 100 years he'll be in the same category as Beethoven or Mozart or Bach. He was an incredible musician. And I want to focus on one specific piece that he created called Giant Steps. So as you know, being a musician, there's sort of a way that harmonic structure flows. And when I say harmonic structure, for someone's not a musician, think about the chords underneath a melody. And the chords sort of go in a pretty logical way. This is the way it's always been done. This is the way you're supposed to do it. Well, John Coltrane writes the song Giant Steps and breaks the rules. But he doesn't break them a little bit. He breaks the rules as far as you could break them. In other words, he broke them so far, if you broke it more, it would be less broken. Like it's just, he broke every rule as far as you could break it. Hence the term Giant Steps. And this was a very revolutionary approach. No one had ever done this before. It was sort of intimidating for other musicians, but that became his most important work. And in fact, a fun fact, my ringtone on my phone is Giant Steps. And it's a reminder to say that sometimes as business leaders, we take those little steps. That's okay. Little acts of creativity do add up. But there are other times when the real answer isn't an incremental answer. It's a transformative answer. It's taking a giant step. And especially in the mobile ecosystem, especially with new technologies, new way of living, geopolitical turmoil, all the things that are happening in our lives, there are times when we have to push ourselves a bit to go out on a creative limb and in fact take a giant step.
Okay, so taking giant steps and creating sheets of music. I mean, just not just the thing that commonly even jazz improvisers would do, but you open up the possibilities with these giant steps. Fantastic. How would you encourage this kind of creativity and innovation in the mobile ecosystem? What method you could try with managers of that industry?
Back to my comment earlier around experimentation, I think that's the right answer. Because if you put the weight of the world on your shoulders to come up with a masterpiece, it's so intimidating, most of us don't do anything. And so a better approach, a more pragmatic approach, is think of little acts of creativity. Start small. Do little teeny baby acts, little refinements. Think about a micro innovation. You've probably heard the term moonshot, which is taking a giant risk. We're talking about giant steps just now. That's like a moonshot. Now think about a micro shot, a micro innovation, a little teeny little dose of creativity. And then you start doing them on a high frequency basis. Instead of thinking about creativity as once a decade or something that's very intimidating, you just start to think about it as part of your daily activity. And over time, creativity, instead of becoming something that you do, it actually becomes something that you are. It's almost like embracing another identity, artist. So you could still be in finance or in customer service or in sales or in software development or in cybersecurity, but why can't you be a cybersecurity artist or a sales artist or a customer service artist? And an artist simply is someone who's willing to confront tradition, someone who's willing to apply creativity to drive better outcomes. And I think when we start to embrace that identity and start taking small, low risk micro innovations, that's when we start to really bring our creativity to life and we become more skilled and prepared to take later on a giant step.
How do you envision the future of work in creative industries? And how should business prepare for these changes?
It's a good question. I don't know that any of us have a perfect vision of it because the world is changing very quickly. I'm sure if someone asked us what would 2024 look like 5 years ago before the pandemic, we couldn't have even understood what our world would look like today. But I still think that it gets back to the role of a leader is being much more adaptive and fluid rather than being stuck in one's ways. I think you're going to see a real confluence of technology dramatically changing the way that we serve and lead. It'll be a co-pilot or an assistant to the leader, and it will be a tool to help serve customers better, to provide sort of more accurate, more engaged, more personalized services and products to our customer base. I don't think it's going to get less competitive. I think it's going to get more competitive. Cycles are only going to increase, not decrease. As fast as the world seems right now, it's never going to get slower. And so, again, I think it applies for a leader really stepping into a new version of ourselves. And if the old version of, what do we do the last 25 years, now it's the new version. What are we going to do for the next 25 years? And it really requires the willingness to hold space for ambiguity, willingness to be adaptive and sort of flow in current situations rather than trying to perfect things before launch.
What advice would you give to young people, to young innovators, entrepreneurs? I mean, we have been talking always about during your interview about keeping the human element, into the development of this revolution that we are living. And so, for the youngsters, what's your about keeping this human dimension, with all the technology that we need to?
I would say to think about the most important skills to develop being different than maybe what you're thinking. So someone might say, I'm going to be a wonderful engineer, so I should learn math. I'm going to be a wonderful doctor, so I should learn biology. I'm going to be a wonderful software engineer, so I should learn code. But the thing is that those elements are going to change. So we can learn a task, but those tasks will change and evolve. I think the most important skill that young people can develop is creative problem solving and inventive thinking. Improvisation, basically, the ability to use ingenuity and resourcefulness. And so if you can develop strong skills at creative problem solving and inventive thinking, the skills that might show up on a resume are going to come and go. Those are going to change over the years. But if you're good at that, I think that's the recipe for sustainable success that will propel you for the decades to come, regardless of how technology changes occur.
You're a guitarist. What's the difference between a great guitarist, but that can play, fantastically with a fantastic speed, just scales, or one that really create music? Because something that could be applied, probably all you were saying, regards again with the comparison with the world of music regards something like that. I mean, because there are many jazz school and lots of great musicians, but just playing, scales, not real music. I mean, is this something that can be compared with something similar in the industry of technology?
I like that question because if you think about AI, what you're talking about, so a musician just plays scales and has very good technique. They're very technical. They have good technical competence. That's what AI is. AI will play scales faster than you and I could ever play a scale. But where art comes, where real success comes, isn't from playing scales faster. Real success comes from not knowing what scales are and then applying them to real world situations, creating art rather than just noise. And art is about what not to play as much as it is what to play. It's not about, look how fast I can play, look what I can do, me, me, me. It's creating art that others can enjoy. It's leaving space. It's letting nuance and subtleties come forward. It's creating tension and release. And so that's what people crave as customers. That's what people crave in business. That's what people crave from leaders. So it's not the most technical musician that wins a Grammy Award. It's the most musical musician that wins a Grammy Award. And I think the same is true for leaders today. It's not the most technical leader. It's the most human leader. And as we develop our technical skills, we can't let go of the crucial importance of developing the human skills, the art, the creativity, because that's truly what will drive our success.
Very last question. We do this question to everybody in this podcast, or almost everybody. If you close your eyes, let's say for 10 seconds, and you reopen it 10 years from now, what do you see? Whatever you think about. I mean, not talking necessarily about technology or industrial revolution or digital revolution or mobile. What was the first image that you have?
What's funny, the first image that I have is actually a dual image in that two forces are going to evolve at a pace that is almost hard to comprehend. Technology, of course, artificial intelligence, mobile ecosystem, synthetic biology, etc. So you're going to see a massive leap forward in technology. And that, back to your example, is like the scales, playing scales really fast. But I think at the same time, in my mind's eye, I see an equal expansion of humanity, of almost spirituality, of people connecting to their core and who are meant to be on this planet. So in other words, I don't think it's the technology and the robots win and the rest of us humans suffer. I think these forces expand concurrently. And so there's going to be this massive leap forward in technology and technical capability. And I think also there will be a massive leap forward in human capacity, humanity, judgment, compassion, art. And so to me, I actually, while I'm sure we'll have problems and challenges, of course, I see a pretty beautiful future where both of those forces evolve and they make life better for many, many people.
Thank you, Josh. Josh Linkner, entrepreneur, tech investor, business guru, and a great jazz guitarist. That's all for this episode of Perspective, the MEF podcast where experts and industry leaders talk about what they think, see, and expect in the world of technology, telecommunications, and innovative mobile services. Stay tuned. From Riccardo Amati, goodbye and good luck with your work.
Thanks for listening to Perspectives in Mobile. Join us next as we explore telecoms, technology, and mobile innovations. Stay tuned, stay connected, and let's unlock the mobile potential together.